Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to my little clicker game tutorial. In this tutorial series, we'll be building a simple clicker game using vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. After completing this series, you'll have a fully functional clicker game, where you can click to get more gems, use those gems to buy upgrades, and tons of other cool features, such as unique skills and a prestige system. Before beginning, however, I'd just like to clarify that I will be assuming you have at least some very basic understanding of HTML and CSS. However though, if you're a complete beginner, that's fine too. I'll be trying my best to walk you guys through the series step by step. With that being said, let's jump straight into the code. So I will be using Visual Studio as my IDE for this tutorial series. I'll begin by creating an index.html file, index.html, and inside here, I'll just create the boilerplate by doing exclamation mark and space. You don't need to know what any of this means. All you need to know is that all the contents goes inside the body tag, so all the HTMLs, and then all the styles goes inside the head, inside here. I'll just change the name of the document to clicker game, and let's begin by writing some HTML. I'll begin by creating a section tag by just writing section and clicking spacebar. So this is like a quicker way of just writing it out manually. And you see me doing a lot of this in the tutorial. And inside here, I'll just create a div, and then I'll give it a class name of main by doing dot main, just like this. And it automatically creates a class for you. And inside this main tag, I'll just create two more divs by doing div times 2. What this does is that it just creates two empty divs, just like that. And in the first one, I'll call it left section. I'll call it left actually. And then in the second one, I'll give it a class of right. So inside the left class, we'll have our clickable object as well as the text that displays how much coins we have right now. So I'll create a h3 inside here, and then I'll just call that one gem because that will be our currency for this series, and I'll just say 0. And below it, I will insert the image by doing image column source, and then I'll just put /assets, and then we'll have gem.png. So let's save this. And so I will be using live server to host to just run my HTML file. If you haven't already installed it, head over to extensions and just search up live server. And over here, you'll be able to install it. So after that's done, you can just save this file and then right click and do open with live server. And over here, you can see that the gem is correctly displayed. Cool. So basically what live server does is that it automatically reloads the page every time you save. So if I go back here and just delete this and control save, as you can see, the thing just disappears without me having to reload the page, which is quite helpful if you're constantly alt-tabbing and just looking at your file. Yeah. So after that, okay, let me bring that back. Okay. After that, I'm just gonna do some simple styling to decrease the size of this and put it to the center where I want it to be. And I'll just put some placeholder things on the right. I'll call it right. So I'll just begin by creating a CSS file. Let's just say style.css. And over here, below the title, I'll do link column CSS. And this just automatically does everything for me. Okay, I'm just gonna go over here and center the left side first. So I'll just target the body tag, which is basically the entire page, and I'm just going to do display grid, and then I'll do place items center. So cool. So all that does is that it centers the image. Basically how that works is that this item, it centers it horizontally and vertically. Actually the reason it's not doing it vertically right now is that the height of the body is only this much right now, up to this line. So what we want to do is actually make the height of the body the entire view height. So 100 view height. So that just makes the body like the entire page, basically. But over here, you can see that I actually created a scroll wheel somehow. So to remove that, we just need to set the margin and padding to 0, because by default, every page there's like a small bit of margin and padding on the borders. So since we've set the height to 100 view height, and if there's a little bit of margin and padding, it will make the total height more than 100. So that's why we saw the scroll bar earlier. So, but we've now have this centered, and then cool. So we actually want to display this right section on the right side and not beneath the left side. So we can just do that by targeting the main div and then say display flex. Okay, cool. So now that's horizontally aligned. I mean, not aligned, like just placed. And we can give it a gap of 200 pixels, just so that there's a little bit of spacing between the two. Okay, that's a little bit better. And we want this text to be centered. So to do that, we can just do dot left, and since it's the h3 tag, we can just target all the h3s inside left, and then we can say text align center. Cool, so that's aligned it. And I just want to make it a little bit bigger. So I'd say font size is 30 pixels. Cool. And add a little margin to the bottom. So margin bottom is 30 pixels. Oh, that doesn't look too obvious, 50 pixels. Okay, so now there's more of a gap between these two now. Cool. And I also want to decrease the size of the image a little bit, because right now I feel like it's a little bit too big. So I'll just give this image a class of gem image, and then in styles I'll say .gem image, say width of 300 pixels. Okay, that's a lot better. Okay, so now that we have this sorted out, we can start adding some JavaScript to make it that when you click on the gem, this number over here actually increases. So to do that, we need to separate out this number individually so that we can target it by itself, just like that. And we'll give it this a class name of, say, gem cost. Okay, and now we need to create a index.js file, index.js, and then we can link it by doing, just beneath the section tag, we can do script column source space and say index.js, just like that. And now we can go to the index.js file and say gem let gem equals document.query selector, and then select the gem cost, just like that. And now we can make a function using that variable we've grabbed from the HTML file. We can do function increment gem, just make a function, and then we can say gem.inner HTML. This just basically targets the value inside the tag, because this over here, it grabs the entire tag, this tag over here, this entire span tag. But by doing inner HTML, we actually target the value that's inside the tag. So now we can do gem.inner HTML +1. So press save and save. And now we can go back to our live server and click. Oh, I forgot to add the function over here actually. So we need to just, so over on the image, just over here, we can say onClick equals increment gem. So every time the image is clicked, it will run the function in the index.js file. So if I save this, now I click on this, oh, it's adding it after the number instead of actually onto the 0. So to fix that, we just need to, over here, we can say parse float. Because by default, the value that this inner HTML grabs is actually a string. So if you know anything about string addition, if you add a string to a number, it will just append the number after the string instead of on to the string. So by doing parse float, we convert into a float, which we can then add the integer onto it. So now we save this. If you click on it, okay, it's working. Nice. So now what I want to do is just give this gem a little bit of bring a little bit of life to it, I guess. So I'll just go to the style.css and then I'll target the gem image. So I'll say gem image on hover. I'll say opacity is 0.9, and then I'll say cursor is pointer, so that when I hover over it, it becomes a little bit dimmer. And also the cursor is, as you can see, it turns into a pointer. Okay, before moving along, I just want to make the background color darker because it's kind of hurting my eyes a little bit. So I'll say 2C, 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 and then I'll give it a color of white, the text color. So now, okay, it looks a lot better in my opinion. Okay, cool. So after that, we can give it a click property. So image, oh fuck, I can't spell. Active. So when it's clicked, we can say opacity is 0.8, and we can make it a little bit bigger. So transform scale 1.02. So now when we click on it, it grows a little bit. Okay, how nice. Oh, as you can see here, if you like move around when you click onto it, you can actually drag the gem around, which is kind of affects your clicking a little bit, I think. And it's pretty annoying. So I can just disable this by going to index.html, and over here I can just do draggable equals false. So now it can't be dragged. Cool. But it can be highlighted though, and also these text. So I also don't want that. So I can go over to the body tag and say user select and do none. So now they can't highlight. Okay, cool. So now that's done, I just want to add the first upgrade over on the right side. So I will over here I will, instead of this right, I'll do a div, and this div will be the container div for each upgrade. But since each upgrade will kind of have the same structure, I'll give it a more general name. So I'll just call it div.upgrade, which will automatically give it a class of upgrade. And so before I add some more divs inside here, I just want to go over the structure of the upgrade a little bit. So I'll just open up Paint 3D, and then okay, I'll just do new. So each upgrade will look something like this, and in each upgrade you'll have an image over here, and a title, and also the cost of the item, the upgrade, and as well as a gem icon over here, just to make it look a little bit better. And on the over here on this side, you have a text called level to show like the current level of the upgrade. So basically this model, you can view it as the image here being the left section, and everything here being the middle section, and everything here being the right section. So by doing this, it just makes everything a lot easier to style, pretty much. So I'll just go over here and then create 3 divs, div times 3, boom. And then inside here, I'll just call it left section, just like that. And then here, I'll call it mid section, boom. And then over here, I'll call it right section. Okay, recall that in the left section, we'll just only have the image. So we'll say image.source, and then that will just be assets, and that will be the clicker white. Okay. And in the middle section, so if I bring back the paint, so over here, you have the title. And then over here, you have another div that has the icon as well as the cost. So over here, this can be simply represented by a h4 tag. So I'll say h4. And inside this h4, I'll just say clicker, because that will be the name of this upgrade. So I'll say clicker. And below this, I'll have a div. And then I'll have a paragraph tag called cost. And then we'll say it cost 10 gems. And below this, I'll just show the image of the gem again. So I'll do assets and gem.png. Okay, so now we save this and I go back. We can see that all the things are properly rendered, but it does not look too good because the images are way too massive. So I'll just go, I'll just give the images each a class. So I'll say class equals, I'll say upgrade image. And then this one over here, I'll say gem image. And over here, I'll say dot upgrade image. And I'll give this one a width of 50 pixels, 55 pixels. And for the gem image, it's quite small, so I'll just give it a width of say 20 pixels. Now if we look, okay, it looks a lot better, but these things are clearly not in line with each other. So now we just need to target the container, the main container div. So it's called upgrade dot upgrade, and inside here I'll say display flex. So now the items are next to each other, which is nice. So actually, before moving on, I'm just gonna add a text in the right section just so we can visualize it. So level 0 over here. But see how the level 0 text and this cursor is not aligned properly. So I want to align them. I can do this by just saying align items center. Cool, so now they're aligned. What I want to do now is just give it a width of 330 pixels, a height of 60 pixels, and also a border of 4 pixels, solid and white. Cool. So we've got the border here, and the box has a width of 330 pixels and a height of 60 pixels. But notice that all of the components in the flex is actually right next to each other. But what we want is that we want this item aligned to the right and we want this item to the middle. So we can do this by giving it a property of justify content, and then we'll say space between. Nice. So what justify content does is that it makes it so that the space between each element is even. So this space is the same as this space, and it will use up all the space that is given inside the box. So in this case, it will use up all 330 pixels. But notice that the items are actually pressed right against the borders, but we don't want that. So we just give a padding of 10 pixels in the y-axis, so top and bottom, and 20 pixels on the left and right. Press save. Cool. Lastly, I just want to round out the borders a little bit. So I'll come here and do border radius of 5 pixels. Okay, cool. That looks a lot nicer. I need to make this gem display next to this value. So to do that, we can just give this one a name, and then we'll give it a, say, just call it cost info. I'm really bad with the class names. So cost info dot cost info. We can say display flex. Okay, it's a little bit too close. Display flex, and then we can say gap of 5 pixels. Okay, so you can see that this image is being kind of dragged out a little bit. We'll just give it a strict height of 20 pixels just to avoid that problem. Okay, cool. And you can see that it's not aligned properly. And to do that, like before, we can just say align items center. So now it's aligned. But you can see that there's like there's a big gap between like the clicker and the cost of 10, which is quite unusual. So if we go to inspect and then select this over here, we can see that this has like a pretty big margin on the top and right, as well as this value over here. And this is because by default, every like paragraph and heading tag, it has like a big padding around it, which is like quite strange. So like to get rid of that, we can just target the middle section. So we can say midsection, and then we can say H4, and we can say H4 first, and then we can just do margin is 0, and then same thing with the paragraph tag. So paragraph and margin 0. Save, and now it's gone. Cool. But I just want a little bit of gap between these two. So what I'll do is I'll just choose this one, I guess. I'll just do margin bottom is 20 pixels. Okay, cool. And I want this clicker to be just a little bit bigger. So I'll go to the H4 and say font size is, say, 20 pixels. Okay, cool. That looks a lot better. So now that we have this container, the styling done, we can now do the JavaScript. So make it that when you click on this one, it decreases the amount of gems you have and then gives you an upgrade. And for this upgrade, we'll just do every time you buy it, you'll get 1 passive gem every second. So with that being said, let's go over to here, to the index.html, and then we need to separate the cost into its own span and give it a class of clicker cost. And now we can just go over to the index.js and target that. So we can say let clicker cost equals document dot query selector, and then we can just do dot clicker cost. And now we can make a function. So function, we'll call it by clicker. And then inside here, we'll say if the current gems that we have, so if gem.innerHTML is greater or equals to the clicker cost, so clicker cost.innerHTML, and then we can do gem.innerHTML minus equals clicker cost.innerHTML. Okay, so let's try this. Before doing that, we need to just call this function actually somewhere. So we'll call it on the entire container. So we'll say onClick equals by click. Oh, it's a by clicker? I can't remember. Wait, okay, let's call it by clicker. I think that sounds better. By clicker. Okay, so now we click it, nothing happens. Okay, that's good because we only have 0 gems. We're broke. And now we go here. Now we have 16. Click on it. Boom, it decreases. Nice. But it's actually not giving you any upgrade. You're just losing money for no reasons. And okay, what I saw there, yeah, you can actually go to the negatives somehow. That's interesting. Oh, I see. So we're actually comparing gem.innerHTML with clickercost.innerHTML, which may not necessarily be numbers. So instead, we could do parse float and brackets gem.innerHTML. Actually, to make things a little bit easier for ourselves, we can create a little shortcut variable over here called parsed gem equals to parse float gem.innerHTML. So every time in the future we'll have to call this one, we can call parse gem instead. So that will make things a lot easier and easier to read. So same thing for this one, we can say parse clicker cost equals parse float clicker cost.innerHTML. Okay, so now we will always use this variable to place inside gem.innerHTML. So over here, instead of doing gem.innerHTML plus 1 with itself, we can instead do parsed gem, because the value of parsed gem will originally be the value inside gem.innerHTML. So we can just plus equals 1 to this, and instead of setting inner HTML to +1 itself, we can just set this to parse gem. Okay, we'll just try if it's still working. Click, 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 click. Okay, nice, it still works. And now down over here, we'll replace this one with parse gem, and this one with parsed clicker cost. So similarly to this function over here, we can just say parse gem minus equals parsed clicker cost. And then over here, we can just set the gem.innerHTML equals to parse gem. Okay, now everything should be working. Let's try. Click, 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 click. And then we can purchase. Nice. And we try purchasing again. Okay, it doesn't let us. Sweet. Okay, guys, so that'll be all for the first episode of the series. So in the next episode, we'll be adding to the buy clicker function so that when you upgrade the clicker, the cost will increase and the level will increase as well. And also, when you actually buy the clicker, it will give you a passive gem income. So it'll increase your gems per second so that when you upgrade the clicker, it actually does something rather than just eating up your gems. Yeah, so thanks for watching, everyone, and see you in the next episode.